So we will call to order the June 21st, 2016 work session of the Penfield Planning Board. Allison, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Hetzke.
Here.
Bastian.
Here.
Knauer.
Here.
Tidings.
Here.
Burton.
Here.
Nursinger.
Here.
Sangster.
Here.
O'Connor.
Here.
All right. We got minutes from the last meeting.
Minutes from June 9th. Any questions, concerns, comments?
Move to approve. Second.
Bastian and Knauer, thank you.
Okay, Hetzke.
Aye.
Bastian.
Aye.
Burton.
Aye.
Knauer.
Aye.
Tidings.
Aye.
Okay. Tabled item number 1, the Bayview Landing project. No updates to report. Imagine they're still working on all their architectural as they have been, as well as the other items. So, if there aren't any questions about it, as we've done in the past, or we'd like to continue table it.
Motion to continue table.
Okay.
Second.
Terry.
Now we're in Tidings.
Hetzke.
Aye.
Bastian.
Aye.
Burton.
Aye.
Knauer.
Aye.
Tidings.
Thank you. Number 2, Crossroads Community Church on Jackson Road. We had the public hearing for it last meeting on the 9th. The board had a few items in the tabling resolution for the applicants. One was to explore, the biggest one was to explore alternatives to the rain garden that is shown on the plan to the left of the screen, on the backside of the parking lot. At that point in the project, they were proposing over 6,000 square feet of impervious surface, which warranted that from the IWC guidelines. They took that comment, they revised their plan that night, well, following that, and we now have a plan on the right that is less than 6,000 square feet of impervious surface, and therefore a rain garden is no longer on the plan. Over here. So they revised the parking lines at this point. Number of stalls went down by 1 or 2. I can't. It's in the bottom corner of the plan. I can't remember off the top of my head. Staff has taken a look at this over the past week. Tonight we did put comments in the drop for the board. Many of them are technical in detail. However, the one that was brought up was regarding the handicap spaces near the entrance road. The New York State Building Code only requires 3 handicap spaces for a project of this size, a parking lot of this size. They currently have 3, one in the front of the building, which was described as the large spot during the public hearing, and they're showing 2 more in the rear of the building. These 4 here, in staff's opinion, wasn't very practical in their location for a handicap spot. So we made the comment, and for the board's consideration as well, that if they'd like to relocate these spaces to elsewhere in the parking lot, they can do that, or they have enough by code where they can now remove those and use them just as normal parking spots. Just take the handicap logo off of them. They have that comment. They were given those comments today to start considering them, and we'll probably have responses back after this meeting quickly. They've been good about turning around their feedback.
So this existing space, the space that you refer to as the large space?
Correct. Visible from the road.
Okay. So that does not appear to be a compliant handicap space because it doesn't have an access aisle. So somebody from the staff should take a look at that and determine whether or not there's a code compliant access aisle that has the dimensional criteria in the ANSI standard. Otherwise, they would need to add at least one.
We can do that. Well, we can also ask the applicant to put the dimensions. I don't believe that plan.
Yeah, so
You can see
technically it should be
it's a wider,
striped.
correct.
And the improvements to the parking lot are a code triggering event, so they would have to restripe any non-compliant spaces at this juncture anyhow.
We can do that. Not only can we ask for a dimension, we can ask for the striping to make sure if they do need to make that space larger to use it as a handicap spot, they can do that.
Yeah,
If
and-
not, as you said,
And
don't.
those parallel parking spaces technically they require an access aisle as well to their side, and there isn't adequate room to do that, it's in the drive lane.
Right, and we also looked at that for the length as well. They're not showing a dimension of how long that stall is versus your normal stall. So that in mind, and just not knowing how large they actually are, we made that recommendation about possibly relocate them or remove them because you have enough. Pending the review of the concrete one out front.
It's not unusual for churches and other assembly spaces that cater to older population to want to increase the minimum number of
And-
accessible spaces. It's a nice,
Exactly.
nice
That's why we
feature.
didn't discourage the
So they make sure
handicap.
that they can't do it. Right?
Which is why we didn't discourage it, but if they'd like to relocate them, there is space in the back. Is it a longer walk to the front door? Yes, but it seems like they're planning to use the rear if they need to, or when they're proposing the striping to come right off that pad, so here that they have access points where they need them. So with that being said, other changes on the plan are technical in nature, but tonight, what's the board's feelings on the proposal, the layout of the parking, with the handicap, changing the bottom here on the drive aisle, and overall with the plan and how it's laid out? Does the board have any more concerns about that, the scope of the project in itself?
it was really just the impervious surface and the trees and the drainage, and
Yep.
they made those things go away.
Yeah, I'm good with it.
And from what I understand, there was no lighting changes.
Correct. We briefly talked in the work session about there possibly being an existing light in the back of the property following that telephone pole.
Right.
I looked back there, that's actually a transformer. That's not a light on the map there.
Okay.
So they do not have any existing lighting, they're not proposing any lighting. And that's up to them.
And this still requires a variance?
Correct. This will go to the
Step
zoning.
back.
Yep. There's a conditionally permitted operation within the residential zoning district requires a 50-foot buffer to adjacent properties. And they're requesting a 15-foot buffer space, so 35-foot variance from that buffer from the zoning board. That will go to the zoning board in July after our meeting in July. So there's still one more meeting to discuss this application. Depending on the board's thoughts tonight, the board could be in a position to direct staff to draft an approval resolution. Everything is still contingent upon the zoning board giving them that variance for that 35 feet for a 15-foot setback.
I'm good with
Open to
that.
discussion.
Yeah, I would say let's get it
Drafted?
going.
Yeah.
I'd agree.
Okay. We'll begin drafting the resolution. We'll provide that to the board at the next meeting.
Before, could we condition it based upon?
We would do it at
Zoning board?
the 9th, our meeting on the 9th, and it could be approved with conditions
Yeah.
pending zoning board approval. And
The 9th of,
9th of July.
It's canceled, right?
No, we sent out a notice canceling the public hearing
Oh,
portion of
okay.
that meeting, because July and August, there's only one meeting, we combined public hearing and work session. So we sent out a notice to say the public hearing portion of that meeting is canceled, it will only be a work session
A work
meeting at
session.
6:30.
I thought it was the 15th,
Yeah. 14.
July.
14th.
14.
14.
Not the
Yeah.
9th.
I had June in my head still for the 9th, sorry.
Okay, I'll be here then.
June 14th, July 14th.
Otherwise, I'm in Colorado.
Okay, just the one meeting in July.
Correct.
Okay.
So at that meeting, the board could potentially approve everything. So we'll begin drafting that. Any other questions on this application?
And I'm sorry, when was zoning meeting in July?
They will be on the 21st,
Oh, the 21st, okay.
the week after.
So to be conditioned on the approval of the
Yeah, then the July meeting, that's what our potential motion could be. Tonight, it would just be a continued table motion.
Okay.
And if there aren't any more questions on it, we can
Yeah.
move on to
Let's,
that.
move to table.
I second it.
Motion is carried. Thank you.
Hetzke,
Aye.
Bastian,
All right.
Burton,
I,
Canower,
Aye.
Tidings.
Aye.
Sorry for the date mix-up there. It's been a long day.
It's all right.
We didn't have computers to start the day. It was fun. Table item number 3, the 1429 Shoecraft Road application, 3-lot subdivision. Board gave staff direction to prepare an approval resolution at the last meeting. We did confirm with the applicant about the sidewalk waiver proposal as they showed it on their plan. Plan showed an easement, but also showed sections for sidewalks. We clarified that they will be applying for a sidewalk waiver,
They will, okay.
providing easements on both frontages. Other than that, again, it's back to technical items with staff to follow up in a pre-Mylar process. If there aren't any other items,
Anybody concerns?
there's been no other feedback from the community on it. Everyone's been okay with it. We heard our drainage concerns and we passed that along, Mike passed that along to the town engineer.
Okay.
So with that, there was a Part 2 EAF that was provided and the draft approval resolution.
Move to approve the Part 2 EAF.
Second.
Bastian and Canower, thank you.
Okay, Hetzke,
Aye.
Bastian,
Aye.
Burton,
I,
Canower,
Aye.
Tidings.
Aye.
And then the approval
Move to
resolution.
approve the resolution.
second.
Second.
Robert.
The suspense.
The whole community was,
Aye.
Bastian,
aye.
Burton,
I,
Canower,
Aye.
Tidings.
Aye.
Cue the music.
Don't let everybody else jump in at once.
Okay, one miscellaneous item. Could you go to 2221 Penfield Road? Oh, there we go, got the plan on the board. 2221 Penfield Road, this is located across the Tim Hortons that was most recently built
Yeah.
to the east of 250. This is the approved
Yep.
plan that's out there now. I believe it's a doctor's office that operates out of this
Family medicine.
home. This zoning district's all BNR, but there's a doctor's office that runs out of there. We just had the current plan up. What they're proposing is a parking lot expansion to the rear of the site, going around the building and to the rear. They're at this time not showing any buffering. The question that we have for the board tonight is, are we comfortable taking this to a preliminary final application, skipping sketch? It would require preliminary final, obviously. Just want to get the board's thoughts and feelings on that.
I don't think we need sketch.
Okay.
Would anybody see
No,
a reason
no,
to do a
sketch
sketch plan on this?
the only thing that jumps out at me about this is that we have this condition in that entire zone, and to have these residential properties converted to BNR, and to maintain buffering and protection of the residential neighborhood behind there.
That was going to be my point.
Yeah, so just speaking out loud, what happens were we to consider this without a sketch plan to all of the other properties that would love to have, because it impacts other things aside from impervious surface and green space. It also impacts the number of cars pulling in and out, and kind of what are they doing with the practice kind of a thing. So these were all supposed to be low density uses.
Part of this, in the grand scheme of it, I have two responses. Landscaping would be considered extremely in this because of the buffer that you need to provide to the neighbors. Not only is there the 50-foot buffer, but there's also the naturally we would require a landscape buffer, whether it's a fence or a landscape, whatever it may be, something to shield that really just morning traffic, which would be most likely residents, employees going to the back shield those homeowners from the lights and just the visibility of it. The town engineer was in the area today, and he noticed that it is a pretty clear shot from the residence to that property. So we would certainly have our comments about that. So that's the one part of my response. The other part is that through the BNR rezoning that occurred, Luamp comes into play with cross-access and shared parking. And thank you, Doug, for zooming out. What that parking lot could eventually begin the pattern for is similar to what we've been doing on Penfield Road, to the west with the doctor's offices, eye care, medical, dental, all those uses that are going in now, where you will get your connection to the access roads that eventually lead to McDonald's. So we have this access road here off of 441 connecting into 250 eventually. That parking lot that's proposed was shown with the stub to the west that could continue a pattern down through the rest of the properties through their redevelopment. Currently,
We
you have
want
two
to take that
businesses
into
there.
consideration with buffering and all that stuff.
And part of that would be cross-access easements and all of that. None of it really hinders sketch plan versus preliminary final.
Right.
We would still have the same comments at either phase. It just depends on what plan is presented to the board at the time.
So, in other areas of the town where we have cross-access easements or service roads,
Yep.
it's either or. So if you had originally intended to have a cross-access easement behind the properties, then the parking would be pretty much restricted to behind the properties, and we wouldn't have the additional parking out front. So,
I see where you're going.
I'm interested in what the staff has to say about that.
Front and
Did you?
back.
About the front too.
Yeah, because did you intend to have that many spaces and that much activity
Mhm.
in an area where ingress and egress are difficult,
Yeah.
except for a low-density use?
That is a perfect question. I don't really have an answer to that because it would, a lot of everything is triggered on redevelopment, and these businesses kind of occupied and renovated to make their businesses work in single-family homes. When we see a complete rebuild demo, then we are able to eliminate some of that front parking because we're moving buildings closer to the road, oftentimes eliminating curb cuts as well. Because through the rezoning in this particular instance, the property at 2215 is narrow for a reason. This would be the only curb cut that comes into service a rear drive aisle. Ideally, the other curb cuts on the road would disappear so that you get traffic off of 441 quicker and facilitate that traffic through the back of the properties, just as we've done on the northwest side, on the other side of 250. It's all based on what the project is. If they're coming in with a new build, we'd be able to say, you're going to eliminate some of that parking and move the building up and possibly relocate everything to the rear as it was intended. But until we see a full rebuild, it's kind of, you work with what you got there. You know? Great comment though, it's something that we can definitely consider when the application comes in, part of not only PRC's review but the board's review as well. Is there an opportunity to remove some parking from the front to offset the additional spaces in the back? But if we're good with preliminary and final, we can give the applicant that instruction and they can begin preparing to submit that application. Good?
I'm good with it.
Cool.
Yeah.
We'll do that. All right.
We don't need to make a,
No motions on that. That was an FYI, just to get the board's initial feedback on that. That's all we got. As a reminder, as I was saying before, public hearing portion of our meeting on July 14th, I'll get this right this time, has been canceled. That legal notice went out today. There will be a work session meeting beginning at 6:30, still on the 14th. And we will continue to discuss our two table items. Until then,
all right. We are done.
so,
We will adjourn until next time, July 14th.
thank you, everybody.